Hey there. I am so excited to be talking about the topic that we have planned for today. I think that there's so much confusion when it comes to both trauma healing and spiritual awakenings. So, I am someone who's gone through so many spiritual awakenings, also so much trauma healing, and I'm also a professionally licensed healer, and I've helped thousands and thousands of people all over the world with their own trauma healing and spiritual awakening journeys. So I really hope that this video can add some value and some juiciness to your journey, no matter where you're at in this process. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to work on yourself and elevate your consciousness, because not only is your future self thanking you as well, but you're also adding some juiciness to this present moment. So I really appreciate you for taking the time to prioritize your own well being. I know that so often people say that as being selfish, but it really is not. And rarely do people, even like YouTubers that I subscribe to, actually take the time to thank their viewers. So I want you to know that this isn't just some cheesy thing that I'm doing. I am, and it's not just me who's so incredibly grateful. When you work on yourself, when you understand yourself, and when you awaken to who you are, you give permission to other people to be vulnerable, to be themselves. You really do make the world a much better place, and you really are being the change that you want to see in the world. So I think so often we can forget that. We're like, oh, I just clicked on this video. What am I doing? It's just this time of day, my normal life. And so I just wanted to remind you of that, that even it's though it's just clicking on this video, you are taking massive leaps, not only for your own evolution in this lifetime, but also the evolution of your lineage and our entire collective consciousness. So thank you so much for really prioritizing that and valuing yourself enough to watch videos like this. So often when people go into trauma healing, it's because we have a lot of pain, right? We can't stick to the habits that we want to stick to. Maybe we are unable to follow behaviors that we know are best for us. One of the behaviors of unhealed trauma is yelling at people or using manipulation or coercion or people pleasing in order to try to get what you want. And oftentimes we'll find ourselves trapped in these behaviors and unsure and unable of how to get out of them, and that's because those behaviors are not our true self, but it's a version of ourselves that we've developed for our own survival in order to get our needs met in the familial environments that we grew up in or in the society that we grew up in. I know that if you're here, you probably identify as well as a sensitive person, and maybe you've even been told that you are too sensitive. So oftentimes people that have really, really sensitive nervous systems, um, there's a lot of talk about that, right? I could probably talk about this for hours and hours. I strongly believe through all of the research and scientific studies that I've gotten to research that some people are just born with more sensitive nervous systems. And so we tend to adopt a lot more of this so-called trauma or traumatic or painful experiences in those 0 to 7 year development years. And when that happens, those behaviors and those patterns are really locked in. Even though we are incredibly intellectual and conscious beings, we do not actually have control over our minds. And I think that we all kind of know this. Our brain really sees the world once between the ages of 0 and 7. And the rest of our life, we're kind of replaying those old stories and patterns that we once saw, that once felt familiar to us. And that's often why we find ourselves trapped in toxic or abusive relationships, because that is physically what our nervous system is used to. So it's really, really important for us to set ourselves free of these old behaviors, bad habits, and to allow ourselves to really be the person that we were born to be. Because underneath that trauma response, those masks, the insecurity, and all of that is this incredible, incredible person. And maybe you don't even ever have a positive memory in your life. I know that when I started my healing journey, I couldn't have one positive memory of childhood. So I want you to know that if you're there, you are not alone and you are definitely not doomed, and you still have that really amazing person underneath this shell of who you've had to become in order to survive in our society today. So, healing is not just a process of doing a single meditation, it's not just a process of cutting out the abusive person in your life if you are in an abusive relationship or anything like that. It is a multi step process of really pouring love into yourself, building up your self esteem, and allowing that inner part of you that you have not poured any water on, or like I'm picturing you as a garden, right? So we've been gardening this artificial version of us, and it's time for us to start to add some fertilizer and some water to the part of us that is just a seed and maybe isn't even a plant yet. And it's going to be really, really easy throughout this process to fall back into your old behaviors that are so much more deeply rooted. When you've been doing something for 30 years, it's hard to stop doing that thing. That's why we have things like subconscious reprogramming. Hypnotherapy is so, so helpful. One hypnotherapy session is said to equal 10 years of talk therapy. So when I heard this, I became a hypnotherapist, first of all. I also did as much hypnotherapy as I possibly could because I knew that my brain needed so much subconscious rewiring in order for me to be able to get to that version of me that I did not know at all. And the more I watered that version of me with hypnotherapy, with breath work, with changing my lifestyle, detoxing, all of these different parts of the healing journey, the more I could cultivate this super amazing part of me that I had never met before. I got to know what my desires are, I got to know what who I really am, and of course also have control over my life, have control over my time, my energy, my relationships, right? And by control, I don't mean that I'm in charge of absolutely everything. It means that I no longer have that super anxious, insecure way of going through life because I've healed those parts of myself. And you're going to notice throughout your healing journey that you are subtly healing throughout the process. Every meditation, every hypnotherapy, every time we go pour into ourselves in any way, it really does take us to the next level. So, this process can be so sacred and so divine, and I'm so happy for anyone and everyone who's on it. And as you go to that next level and you gain more control of your habits, you become someone who goes to the gym consistently and loves the gym. You become someone who loves to read, who never checks their phone in the morning, who it's just natural and easy for you to be a really, really healthy person. You're also going to start to awaken to who you truly are, which is kind of what I was just explaining. So you're going to start to meet the true you. And this is where a lot of people start to talk about the higher self in a spiritual awakening, because the higher self is the you without that survival shell that we developed because we had to. It is not your fault if you are stuck in bad habits or addictions of any sort or negative relationship, whatever it is. It is not your fault. And the higher self is you without those things. So oftentimes people think a spiritual awakening is like becoming a completely new person, and that's not the case. It is unbecoming all of the things that you were not so that you can allow your true self to shine through. The higher self is such a powerful spiritual concept. It is the concept of your soul self. So even though you might be feeling trapped in insecurity or trapped in bad habits or whatever it could be right now, there is a higher self above you, supposedly in the astral realm or dimension, that is looking down on you and is also looking down on your whole entire life timeline and trajectory and knows that you are exactly where you're meant to be. This version of you sees your potential and is guiding you towards your highest potential all along. And I know that this can sound really, really arbitrary. So let's go back to some more tangible things. As we heal, as we unbecome or decondition or deprogram, what we will start to do is naturally awaken. And I'm using all these terms because or I'm using all these like little hand symbols as I'm explaining this because there's so many different ways to talk about this stuff. Some people call it a spiritual awakening. Like there's the dark night of the soul, there's twin flames, there's dimensions. Like we've already gone so far. There's so many different words sometimes for the same things. So if a certain word isn't resonating with you, or if maybe none of this is resonating with you, I want you to know that that's completely okay and that you will find something that does resonate with you. And when you find words that don't resonate with you, maybe spiritual awakening just feels so out there for you and you don't like that, that is an awakening process for you, which is so, so cool. People often think when they find something that they don't like, that's not for them. But actually, that is leading you to your deeper awareness of self. Awakening is awareness. So when we, let's say, identify that we don't like the term spiritual awakening, what we're really doing in that moment is we are tapping into our intuition and our discernment. There's a part of us that just knows that is not the word for me. That is so divine and that is so sacred. So, if throughout this process you are noticing yourself using your intuitive discernment in this video or maybe in a book that you're reading, I know throughout my spiritual awakening journey, so many people recommend so many books that they really, really love. And I love these people, but I didn't love the books. And it took me a lot of strength and a lot of courage to know how to navigate those situations. A, that I can stop reading a book that I don't like. B, that I can still like the person who recommended it. And C, that I can still like that they liked it. Everyone has their own thing, and that is what it is to be able to use discernment. When I was way, way, way back at this beginning of my spiritual journey, people would recommend me books, and it would literally ruin our friendship because I would judge them and be like, how could they like a book like this? This is such a weird book. I don't like, I was judging them. And so, wherever you're at in this process, I want you to know that it is okay. It is okay to be where you're at. It's okay to have judgments. It's okay to be not understanding the spiritual awakening or unsure if you've had one quite yet. But I want you to know that we are in this process. And what I mean by that is like this generation and the time of Earth that we're in. And if you're watching this video, you are on a spiritual awakening process. And that means that you are awakening to your true self, your inner self. Spirituality means journey within. A lot of people think that it means journey away from God, like spirituality versus religion, but that is actually not the case. I work with so many people who are incredibly religious in becoming more spiritual, or maybe spiritual people in becoming more religious, or maybe they are completely separate. I know that I am super, super spiritual and also omni religious. So there isn't a specific religion that I follow, even though I'm praying often throughout the day, and it's a part of my everyday life. So I want you to know that your spiritual awakening process doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It doesn't have to mean that you become some tarot reader, you have a crystal ball, or anything like that. A spiritual journey is a journey of understanding what is important to you, what you want for your life, and how you want to be. Maybe part of your spiritual process is being the type of mother that no longer raises her voice around her kids or talks about certain topics that you keep noticing that you are having trouble not talking about those topics around your kids or something like that. Maybe your spiritual journey is a process of getting out of homelessness. I've talked about my journey with homelessness a few videos back if that resonates with you. So I want you to know that your spiritual journey can be absolutely whatever you want it to be. And the spirit, the inner self, is with us throughout our entire life. So when we embark on a healing journey or on a spiritual journey, what we're doing is we are going to therapy. We're going to relationship therapy, basically, between ourselves and our inner self, the most sacred part of us. Every time we meditate, that is what we're doing. And we're working on that relationship. We're working on how to communicate with the most sacred and amazing parts of ourselves and how to bring those parts of ourselves more into our everyday behaviors and our everyday life. The more we have awareness and mindfulness over our thoughts, our emotions, our habits, and all of those things, the more we can feel in harmony with everything it is that is going on around us. And that is what happiness is. It's feeling in harmony instead of trying to control and being like, I know because I said control earlier, so I wanted to come full circle on that. Control doesn't necessarily lead to happiness, but when we are living in harmony, we feel in control of ourselves because we have this amazing relationship with ourselves. And that can really, really lead to happiness in all areas of our life. When we have this inner self respect and this inner divine relationship, other people might not respect us. Other people might clash with us, and we can navigate conflicts and we can navigate changes or leaving a job. It doesn't matter what degree this conflict or change is at. We can navigate all of it so much better because we feel securely attached to ourselves. So, being a human being is not just being this shell of you. This physical body is just a really, really important part of you. We also have our inner self, our consciousness, our spirit, our mind. We can break all of that down. We have our emotional body, we have our nervous system. There's so many parts of us. And the more we learn how to meet all of our needs at all times, the more we have to love within ourselves, the more joy and energy and alignment we can truly feel. So it's really, really valuable to be on this process of awareness or awakening or healing, whatever it is that you want to call it. And if you are on this process, something that's going to really, really help you is first identifying your why. One of the ways that you can identify your why or your reasoning, your motivation for showing up for your meditations every day, for healing in whatever weird ways come up for you, could be asking yourself, who depends on me being my best? Is it your future self? Is it your bank account? Is it your future kids, your current relationship? Think of all of these people, including you, and hold that in your heart. Really write that down and allow yourself to sit with it. Even bring the paper up to your heart, do something physical. It really helps anchor in these practices. And it's going to help you be so much more motivated to try out different books or to put down books that you don't like, to try out different classes. I know I have a really, really amazing free healing class in the description down below that so many people have tried out and sent me incredible messages about. So please, please, please go check that out if you are on this healing spiritual awakening journey so that you can see some more results, more benefits for yourself. And also, make sure that you send me an Instagram message if you have an Instagram, or you can send me an email letting me know how that masterclass went for you because I love to support you and cheer you on in your journey. Back to our awakening practices. In addition to a masterclass like that, having a practice where you can invite more mindfulness and more awareness into your everyday life. And I know that this is hard to do when we are going on dates, going to work, going to the gym, like we're always on the go. And when we're even sitting down and doing just one thing, we're thinking about the next thing. So, as human beings in this modern 3D world, we're living this really, really, really fast paced life. And one of the ways that we can slow that down and invite more mindfulness into it is by just taking 15 minutes every single day. I like to do it at night. Maybe the morning is better for you. But I like to write down every single thing that went well. Also, I will write on a different page things that could go better. And I'll kind of do this for every 24-hour period. I do it every single night, and it gets your mind into the habit of being more self aware. So, when you're in this habit, something that you're going to notice is that as you're going throughout your busy, busy, bustling day, you're like, ooh, this cup just feels so nice in my hands right now. And like, I just want to take a deep breath and enjoy this moment. And you'll just notice yourself having those mindful moments throughout your life more often. And the more often we accumulate those mindful moments and remember that self awareness, the more conscious we become, the more we awaken, the more we can control our behavior, the more we raise our self esteem. So, being on a lifetime journey of mindful awareness is such a sacred practice. I devoted myself to this practice many years ago, and it has really, like, I cannot recommend it enough. I want you to know that if you are on this journey, that we often beat ourselves up for not being further along. And mindfulness is a practice of remembering. So every time you have a mindful moment, every single time you get to give yourself a pat on the back, again, do something physical in your physical body and be like, wow, I just remembered to love myself. I just remembered to slow down, to use my awareness. This is going to help my brain so much more in the long run. And I'm so grateful for that. Another thing that can really help us through this healing and spiritual awakening process is being able to try to see things from the bigger picture, which I know is so hard to do. One of the ways that I do this is by seeing myself as a character that is going through life. So it's like my higher self is the video game operator, and I am the character. And sorry, I got a hair. When I have this perspective, it helps me be able to better see what level am I on. And it doesn't really matter what number or like how you call the different levels, but it's really, really valuable to be able to identify what you're working on in that moment and to also know that you don't have to work on every single thing at the same time. That is so, so important. So if you're watching this right now and you're thinking of all of these bad habits and all of these things that you want to change, just pick one or two. That's it to focus on at a time. And that is this level. So choose a name for this level. Maybe it's a word that really juices up your soul. Like the chapter or the level that I'm in right now is called nourish. And I just love that word so much. And it just even just the name of the chapter of this healing journey that I'm in, like we're talking about something that is not even real, right? It's a chapter of my spiritual evolution in my life. But even just the name of that chapter encourages me to not only do the spiritual activities that I know will help me and serve me in my highest goal, but to also be able to do them with so much more purpose and devotion, which is just where I'm at right now. And I really, really love that. Whenever I go into the fridge, I'm like, ooh, I'm in the chapter of nourish. Like, how do I want to nourish my body? And things can feel really good that way. So maybe you're in a chapter of letting go of old friendships, letting go of old things, decluttering your house. Maybe you're in a chapter of energizing and bringing more light and energy into every day because you've just been feeling so low. Or maybe you're feeling so low and you want to honor that with a Oh, I don't know what happened there. And honor that with a chapter of divine rest and pulling back so that you can go forward and really romanticizing that chapter of pulling back, seeing yourself as that lobster, that crab without a shell who's just soft and mushy and just looking for their place. And I really love to get so creative and visualize all of these different parts of my chapter. I'm sitting in front of my I don't even know how many filled up journals I have of all of these different not only writings, but when I'm in a chapter of pulling back, I'm drawing all of those animals that are in their little, like the bear in the cave that is hibernating and really tapping into all of that energy because it can really help us. I know it sounds so out there, but being someone who shares Indigenous practices and works with animal medicines, supposedly they're called. I know different tribes call it different things, but or spirit animals, totem animals, that's another way of talking about it. We can really tap into the energy of these animals. And it's so important to remember that you are nature. All of us are on a soul evolution from birth until death. We didn't necessarily know that we were. We're all becoming more and more aware of it every single day or every time that we do soul work and expansive exercises. And throughout this evolution, there can be different phases of it. And I love the process of just being exactly where you are, not trying to get to the next phase, not trying to learn the next phase, but really trying to learn yourself where you're at. Because through the whole entire process of evolving, something that I've noticed that is kind of sad to notice a little bit is that you're never going to be this version of yourself again. So get to know you, get to love you, love the version of you that has bad habits and does all of these things or whatever it is. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but the more we can invite acceptance and love into our lives, the less we have shame and all of those negative things into in our lives as well. And the less shame we have in our lives, the easier it is for everything to flow in our life. So I know it can be so easy to put the bad parts of ourself away, but the whole entire process of evolving and awareness and healing is surrendering to the fact that there are no bad parts of you. Every single part of you developed in order to survive, developed in order to get some need met that you weren't getting met in some other way. So we don't need to judge ourselves. We don't need to shame ourselves. In fact, give yourself a big hug right now and just allow that to sink in. Every single thing that we do serves us in some way, and it is not your fault for being the way that you are. But from this point on, we can take the reins back on our life and take control of our healing journey and start to live a life with a lot more love and a lot more purpose. And it starts with loving the parts of ourselves that even are messing up sometimes. It's really, really important to do. And that's where inner child healing comes in. And that's where this video can go on for hours and hours and hours. So please, if this resonated with you, check out the masterclass below. It is only 15 minutes long, and it can really support you in getting clear on some things that might be holding you back in your life so that you can get to that next level of your healing journey, or even just better see what level you're currently on right now. Thank you for taking the time to join me for these sacred topics and these sacred videos. It is such an honor to share this time between our spiritual selves. And I hope that you have an amazing evening, amazing morning, whatever time of day it is for you. Go outside, touch some grass. Remember that you are nature, you are a cyclical being, you are in your evolution, and to just give yourself some grace, some love. Everything is working out. Best case scenario.